Look at all those smiling faces.
We got some new hair on the call. Another beard coming from Jeffrey and a mustache from Zach.
Wow.
And I'll have
Zach,
to do my
I
nose
like the
hairs.
look. Zach, you look awesome. The mustache is good. Good
Ever
eye.
since I got this mustache, they give me 10% off at Napa and as a co-op in Carbondale. So it's been working out really good.
10%? Why? Why do they give you 10% at Napa?
Just for having a cool mustache, I think.
Oh, that is, I
I'm
had no
just kidding.
idea.
He fits the profile of their favorite type of shopper.
Yeah, I think yeah.
I was thinking it looked so French. With that, y'all are good to go. Yeah.
All right, great. Let's call this meeting of the Planning and Zoning Commission to order. It's February 21st. And I'm Chelsea, and this is my first time as the chair, so please screw it up. But I'll open the meeting to the commissioners if there are any comments that have something to do with it, something other than what.
Uh-oh.
Chelsea,
From the commissioners? What?
You had frozen, Chelsea.
Oh, sorry. Okay, well, I'm asking if there's any comments from the commissioners.
On current events, the Chinese satellite? No. Looks like you froze up again, Chelsea.
Yeah,
There you
no,
go.
anything that's not on the
I
agenda.
was just filling in.
Thanks. I can hear you guys fine, but I understand if it freezes up, sorry. Well, good thing I don't want to do any more talking for the rest of the meeting anyway. Can you hear me now? Okay, are there any comments from planning staff on anything that you want to talk about other than what's on the agenda tonight?
Just quick, it's Mardi Gras. Happy Mardi Gras, everyone. I seem to, well, Mardi Gras is always on Tuesday, so I can't tell you how many P&Z meetings I've been to on Mardi Gras, but nice to see you all. And just wanted to remind you that we do have an item scheduled for March 7th, a location and extent review for a new trail along Maroon Creek Road that will basically go up to the rec center along kind of the Moore property. So on the right-hand side of Maroon Creek Road as you're going up. So just a heads up that we have that on the agenda.
Cool.
I think that's it.
Awesome. All right. Well, are there any members of the public here that on the call, Bonnie, that might want to make a comment today?
we have no attendees from public today.
Okay.
Not even Miss Sizzle?
I'm not relieved. Okay, the second is our land. I know an update on the Community Growth Advisory Committee is our main agenda item, and good thing Joe and Suzanne and I are here too, because we can chime in, but I will let the Pickens County staff start with what they have as a presentation for us to give us a summary as far as what's been going on over the last 4 months of 12 meetings. So listeners will be interested to hear what staff has to say and what we can give you as far as feedback also. So with that, I'll let Cindy or Ellen take it away.
Right. Ellen's slideshow that we're going to present as we go through. And we're going to tag team this. And we thought we would try to get through the quick slide presentation. And then, if you will, open it up to any questions, Chelsea, that anybody might have, or any input that the other P&Z members might want to add as your representatives. So with that, Ellen, if you want to go to the first slide. So,
Can everybody see the slides? I'll move this.
yeah, this is just some background. And Ellen, I think you were just going to talk a
Yeah.
little bit about who is on the P&Z Representative Committee.
Right. So as Chelsea noted, there are 3 Planning and Zoning Commission members that are that have participated in all of the meetings so far, and they are functioning as a resource, but also as a liaison to the Planning and Zoning Commission. And as you probably remember, it's Chelsea and Joe and Suzanne Caskey who've been taking part in this endeavor. So yeah, we look forward to having them weigh in tonight as well on their perspective of everything that's occurred to date. And so Cindy, I guess I can just jump in on this one.
Well, you may want to just also say who the staff you were going to add in.
Right. So in addition to the 26 members, citizen members on the committee, we've got a great resource team that's made up of staff, including Suzanne Wolf has actually been to every meeting, just about every meeting. So she's been a great resource. But we also have Kara Silbernagel is the team, is the project lead. She's not here this evening because she's on a well-deserved vacation, but then I have been working as part of the resource team, as has Cindy Hubin as a consultant, and Alex Sanchez in our office. He's our business analyst. He's also been really integral to the team. And then we have GBSM as the consultant that we've been working with. And they've been great at primarily facilitating the meetings and helping us pull all the data together and present it. And then John Bennett has been on that resource team because he's got such great background in working with the airport citizen committee and as a chair. And so he's lent a lot to the overall conversation. Yeah, so it's been involved from the get-go.
Right. And as you remember, the board had a lot of applicants, over 70 people, and selected 26 people on the committee. And the committee itself appointed Michael Miracle and Mona Newton as co-chairmen. They work with the staff on a weekly basis, coming up with the agendas and where we're taking what we've heard and moving forward with the next meetings and the data that we need to pull together to keep everything flowing to hopefully in the end get some recommendations. There have been 12 meetings so far, and we are continuing to work through a lot of data, but I think we're finally at a point where we're going to start reviewing some scenarios and getting some a little bit more firm ideas on potential recommendations that are going to come out of the committee on these specific goals that the Board of County Commissioners asked us to look at.
Right. So basically the board gave this group some pretty straightforward direction. They asked the group to use growth management and the land use code to meet our climate action goals. And we're going to go into those in the next slide, while creating an equitable, sustainable, and resilient quality of life and economy for the future. And this was something they established as a result of their emergency climate resolution. Was that in 2020, Cindy? I think somewhere in that realm. So yeah, this is really, we keep going back to these goals so that the committee stays on track.
Yeah, and then we've gone through several different exercises that have been really valuable to help us move along there's the goals that we just talked about. And then we went through a shared values exercise, and really what quality of life meant to everyone, and what it means to be a part of this community, what we want to see more of and what we want to see less of. And then there were several topic areas that everyone wanted to focus on. And you can see those really back down to the basics of revisiting zoning and land use patterns, all the way to residential house size, redevelopment, changes to growth management and TDR program, and taking a look at our affordable housing policies and programs and our current short-term rental policies. Those were things that really rose to the surface as a consensus by the entire group.
And in the list of more of and less of things that people wanted to see to achieve that quality of life, there aren't a lot of surprises here. More electrification, things that we've all talked about, more affordable housing, smaller homes, more flexibility in the TDR program. And on the left side, again, things you'd expect to see: less reliance on fossil fuels, less waste, less demolition, and less sprawl. And really a huge topic that we keep coming back to is less congestion and traffic on Highway 82 primarily. So
less complication of the code, more
Yeah.
simplification.
So no surprises there really, and people were able to identify values that all shared. So one of the things that everybody agreed to pretty early on the right side of your screen was that the status quo isn't working. No change is not an option. In the end, everybody wants to see some change to achieve those quality of life and climate action goals. And as Cindy said there are a lot of tools that have been identified that could help meet those goals. Zoning is going to be, I think, we're going to rely on heavily, as you might expect. We've talked about a square footage cap, and there's, as you'd expect, there's some different opinions as to what that should look like. And then other tools that you're all familiar with. Growth management needs to be looked at. TDRs is definitely something that people want to look at again and evaluate in their current form. And we acknowledge that redevelopment is happening and it needs to be really taken into consideration. And I won't go through all of the items listed here, but there are a lot of pieces and parts that are going to be a part of the equation when this group does come up with recommendations.
Yeah, and just to kind of get back to the advisory committee sort of time frame and the process that we're going through. The committee was supposed to be a 6-month committee, and they have agreed to at least work through March because we got started a little bit late, but we may end up going a little bit longer. Who knows? We're going to try to get some public outreach during the month of April. If we have, if we're starting to shore up some high-level recommendations, and then finalize those recommendations to the Board of County Commissioners that hopefully in April and May. And we know that the board needs to direct staff then to go back and bring these amendments forward. And that's when the P&Z will probably come into your heaviest lift. Once the board looks at the recommendations and decides if it will or won't move these recommendations forward to the P&Z, then the P and Z is going to have a heavy lift because you'll have all sorts of code amendments before you that you'll need to make recommendations on to the Board of County Commissioners, and you'll be holding public hearings on those code amendments. So that's
Right. And
when that will be happening.
in addition to, so here's a graphic just to help put a different way of walking through that process. And so in addition to the Planning Commission in the, let's see, really playing the biggest role in that third column, you're going to be looking at code amendments before we even get to code amendments, the recommendations made by the committee and moved forward by the Board of County Commissioners will be subject to a overall comprehensive plan update. So that is your purview. The Planning and Zoning Commission, as you know, has authority by state statute to approve and amend comprehensive plans. So that will be the first step after the board gives us staff and the Planning and Zoning Commission direction to move forward. And then that will be the basis from which the basis used to move forward with land use code amendments. And you will be the recommending body for those. And then ultimately the board will be the authority that adopts any changes to the land use code in the end. And there may also be some energy code. There may very well be some energy code amendments as well. And that, so we'll expect to see those down the line. So that is really a quick run through in terms of what we've been looking at, some of the common values that have been established, tools that we anticipate using, and then timeline and process. But we really would love to hear from the Planning and Zoning Commissioners that have been participating. You really haven't had a chance to weigh in during the meetings in your advisory role. And so, yeah, with that, that's all we've got in terms of presentations. So I'll turn it back over to Chelsea, unless Suzanne Wolf's also been involved in many of these meetings, and she may have something to add as well.
I don't think I have anything yet.
Well, thank you, Ellen and Cindy. That was very helpful. You kind of are spinning it to Joe and Suzanne Caskey and I then to kind of give feedback. So Suzanne, would you like to start with some of your thoughts on what you've observed so far in the last 12 meetings?
Yes, and I am under the weather with COVID, so if I have a cough, just ignore it. I must say to the rest of the P&Z that I've never seen such a hardworking group before, ever. I've never seen such a comprehensive process. I've always seen the staff as responsive, but when the staff early on said, if you need information, whatever it is and wherever it comes from in the world, we'll get it. They did it. No question has been left unanswered, and the complexity with which these 26 citizens are dealing with these issues is pretty staggering. There was one agenda that I think was 79 pages long, and of course every session brings new questions involved, but it's quite an amazing process. If any of you want to go up against what they recommend, you just go right ahead and do it. I don't want to be on the other side of that group. They are quite amazing, and there's not a lazy soul in there.
Thanks, Suzanne. How about you, Joe? Unmute yourself and let us know what you think about the meetings. You and I have been to all of them, I think, or I know you've been to most of them as well.
Yeah, I haven't attended too many in person, but attended them all on Zoom, or when I was in Hawaii on vacation, I watched it on YouTube, so everyone can go back and watch it on YouTube if they want to go through what's going on. But I would echo what Suzanne was saying. I think it's a pretty, broad spectrum of the community. I think we're seeing, good debate go back and forth. I'm not sure I would agree that all the answers are there yet. I think there's a lot of items that really are kind of, in flux here. But let me hit on a couple things. There was, first of all, just, flipping through the memo from the last meeting, there was, it was really kind of a nice table on some of the recommendations and so on. There was, let's see, I'm trying to put my finger on this part of the memo, but I can't. Starting with what I think is going to be a major reaction from the community in terms of house size cap, which I think is what, the community in general is anticipating is going to come out of this. But it's not, as far as I can tell, going to be as they've said in the, in the meetings, it's not going to be a blunt instrument. In other words, we're not going to just say, hey, you can't build anything more than 3250. It's going to be a lot more nuanced than that. And I think there is a lack of consensus on the house size cap and how that would apply and where it would apply. So I think that one is, still kind of to be debated, and I'm sure that the commissioners are going to have their own view. Moving on to some of the other items that have come up, there was a proposal that I think that was worked on by Glenn Horn and Randy Gold, which was to do FAR, FARs throughout the zone districts. Right. So as you probably know, a floor area ratio is a ratio of your lot area multiplied times, some number, which is going to tell you how many square feet you get. And I think that the analog that they were basing it on is our AR2 zone district. Right. So if you go, for example, to Red Mountain, which is in the county, right? And that's, I think, what's R30 up there. And, it's just a, you get X number of square feet. Well, actually, no, I take that back. That is a floor area ratio zone district. So maybe that's a good example. So if you have a smaller lot, you get a smaller house, right? If you have hazards on your lot, or if you have development constraints on your lot, such as steep slopes, then, the steep slopes get deducted. Or it might be something like what the city does, which is the city says, okay, if you've got a flat lot or it's up to 20% slope, then you get full credit for that land. If it's, 20 to 30, you get half credit. If it's over 30, you get zero credit. So again, I think that's responsive to some of these zone districts that have small non-conforming lots, right? That are not well suited for big houses, or perhaps not even well suited for, kind of our standard 5750 square foot house. So I think that had a fair amount of support. I guess I might venture to say that had pretty strong support for one of the tools that'll be employed.
I don't want to interrupt you, Joe. It would
Sure.
help if whoever's in control of the slide deck can put up the slide that has the picture of that, because what you're describing is like scenario 4. And there was a little picture of it on like the third slide from the end or so. And so we can all read it, or if somebody can put that on, because what you're describing is kind of complex and pretty creative, but it shows the number of people who voted that they would be inclined to use that combination of tools. So it puts a visual with what you're saying, Joe. Yeah, that's it.
That's it. Yeah. I mean, at my age, I can't read those. The one on the right. I can read the one on the left.
Neither can I. I had to download it and like blow it up on my computer screen.
Right.
But
Uh-huh.
what you're,
Mhm.
and I'm sorry
think
to
that
jump
is-
into what you're saying, but
Oh, it's okay.
you're describing like what you're describing.
Yeah,
is what's
it's
been going-
scenario 4, I believe, sliding scale zoning based on lot size, floor area ratio.
Yeah.
Right. You know, and I'm sure, you know, people are familiar, like with my Red Mountain example or some of the other, you know, areas that have floor area ratios. But you get into the, like an AR10 lot, an AR10 zones district, which is our, you know, in theory, 10-acre minimum, but, you know, there's a lot of lots that are in the AR10 zone district, and they're just given a straight 5750, regardless of the amount of the, you know, the size of the lot or the characteristics of the lot, and so on. So anyway, that I thought, you know, was, I thought there was a fair consensus on that, or a fairly strong consensus on that. The other one that I thought it's kind of, it's somewhat unique, I guess, and and I think it's probably whatever Cindy and Suzanne and Ellen, which is you know, what they're calling these overlay. I wouldn't call them districts; they're just calling them overlays, right? So the concept behind that, I think, definitely has some traction. And that concept is, okay, you can have more intense development in areas where you have more intense infrastructure, I guess is the way I'd put it, right? So you're closer to the major highways, you're closer to the major roads, you're closer to, you know, the fire department, you're closer to, you know, whatever, you know, and then as you get further out in the rural part of the county, which, you know, has always been, at least in my perspective, something that we're trying to preserve, then, you know, you can't have it as an intense of development as you could if you're closer in. I mean, that concept is true in the sense of the urban growth boundary that we have right now, where, for example, you know, you can use TDRs for up to 15,000 square feet. I think that will probably change, but in any event, that's just an example, I guess. And staff put together a map that kind of shows some of those concepts. But, you know, you get out into the far reaches of, you know, Snowmass Canyon or Castle Creek, and, you know, you're so far from the infrastructure, then, you know, we shouldn't have this super intense development. I know some people have expressed concerns about that because, for example, oh, I have 100 acres, I just want to put one house on it and make it a big house. Can I do that? So I think this would probably catch those types of situations. And I think what we have to be careful about is, you know, my analogy, I guess, would be would be a dam, you know, a water dam, right? You develop, you know, water will find its way to its level. And so in my analogy, if development is water and we're putting up a dam to try and hold back the water, somehow that water is going to find whatever crack it can find to squeeze through. So I think we got to be careful in how we use some of these tools. Like in my example of the 100-acre lot, then someone would say, well, I'll just subdivide it, or I'll go in and, you know, create numerous lots, create more density if I can't have the intensity that I want on that property. So I think, you know, that's going to be the tricky part of this, making sure that as we, you know, change where the dam is and the water flows a different direction around the dam, you know, how do we deal with those types of issues? You know, maybe it's not a great example, but, you know, it's whatever. I like beavers, and, you know, beavers will, you know, do their thing. But, you know, at the end of the day, they build a dam. Well, the water's going to get through one way or the other. And then on, let's see, you know, there was some discussion on growth management and tweaking the system. I didn't get a clear, you know, whatever direction on what might change with growth management. But I think, again, it's more of the, you know, what do we want and what do we don't want, and trying to tweak that system. My view of growth management is it's an outlet because from a constitutional takings perspective, there needs to be, you can't just shut it down completely, or you're going to get, people that are claiming takings. And so, it's kind of a relief valve in some sense, to allow somebody to do something without actually ended up, with a regulatory takings of their property. TDRs, the big discussion about TDRs, and I think it was, like in the memos that said, very similar to growth management. There's probably a place for TDRs in the future. I didn't get the sense that there was a consensus to just eliminate TDRs. But again, it'll be what do we want more of and what do we want less of, and how can we use TDRs to do that? Right now TDRs are limited to additional square footage. That's it. And so I think that there may be some creative ways that TDRs can be deployed in the future. Because again, I think we're going to get a big pushback from people who own TDRs. And, if you limit what they can do with them, again, we're going to have some sort of relief valve in some sense. And so there were some discussions of, how else can we use TDRs so people can get what they, can get something else out of them, can get some monetary value. And, in my view, personally, I think the TDR program has been great. I got to hand it to Cindy for coming up with it, years ago. And there were, certainly lawsuits and battles over that. But on the other hand, we've saved a lot of backcountry acreage. And from my perspective on P&Z, again, I always come back to, I'd like to, I want the urban stuff to be in the urban area, like to have the rural stuff be in the rural area, and not, continue to degrade the rural area. So performance standards, I think there's, close to, I don't know, I wouldn't call it unanimous, but I think that there's very strong support for performance standards. And again, performance standards, different than development standards. Performance standards are, for example, the big one, right, is energy code. And, we have some pretty aggressive goals in terms of trying to reach net zero. So I think that the performance standards discussion has been great. And I think that will be something very positive going forward. So let me see what else I was going to say. I was going to talk about geopolitical events, but I think I'll pass on that. But there's some interesting articles out there. I don't know if people know. You probably heard of game theory, which is a mathematical, evaluation. And then there's some interesting stuff on climate change and how game theory affects climate change. And the main problem in game theory with respect to climate change is the free rider, right? So yeah, everybody else is doing it, so that means I can be a free rider and not do it. And I think that that's an interesting concept, because obviously this is a global issue, and we've got we're one of the big polluters in the world, but also China and India, and but there's not a lot that we can do locally to affect, geopolitical affairs, but it's something that hopefully will catch on, and we won't have, free riders who are basically saying, yeah, you're doing a great job in Pitkin County, but we're in Garfield County and we like big houses and we want the development and we want the property taxes. And so, move to Garfield County, you won't have to deal with all this stuff. So it'd be nice, to see Garfield, Eagle, and Pitkin and maybe Mesa counties come together with some more regional type planning if we can't, do it from a, big, country basis. So anyway, I'm rambling on now, so I will cut it and turn it back over to Chelsea.
Thanks, Joe. You kind of carried the water on that as far as giving real specific updates on what we've been hearing. So I appreciate that. And I'm glad that you put this slide up for our group tonight to see what sort of tools and how they've been kind of fashioned into mixed scenarios, because that I agree with Joe that they are kind of far away from specifying what their recommendations are, but it will be a blend of the tools on the left applied to existing law and modifications of the existing growth management structure. So I've listened in and just kind of kept my camera on in the background, not really chimed in, because I'm interested in all the ideas that are coming out of the group. I will agree, some of them are really creative. And the staff has helped with, listening to the ideas and then applying them in a meaningful sense. So I think it's functioning well from that perspective. I think that the intent of the committee is playing out as it should. And so that's also positive. One of the really important things I think the staff did a good job of doing at the beginning was a lot of education on how land use law and land use works as it applied to a county, and as applied to how zoning works within land use. And so that helps, because a lot of people are, laymen, and they don't know exactly how zoning intertwines with policy. And how, so that was a real helpful foundation for the group to become educated to then use these tools. Although I will say, and sort of echoing what Suzanne said, there are some people who aren't going to be happy with the committee outcome unless they see house size cap on the list. And they say it at every single meeting it comes up. And it's like the solution for certain people, and they will not walk away satisfied until there's a house size cap. So I'm just previewing for the rest of our commission that's probably going to be on the list in some form or fashion, and it depends on what the BOCC directs us to do as far as making changes as to whether we incorporate it, I suppose. But yeah, there are a few squeaky wheels on that topic. But I appreciate how they're all being creative. And I'm glad that Joe mentioned it, because it's been a question in the back of my mind, especially recently on our Wednesday night sessions. And I'm not sure if I can request it of staff, because they're already doing so much. But this won't work in a county of 13,000 people I'm speculating. I don't have a lot of faith in our policy being some sort of great change for the world and what's the good of doing it for just this county if Eagle County is not doing the same thing, and if Garfield County is not doing the same thing, or if the state of Colorado, for that matter, is not doing the same thing. What are other municipalities and jurisdictions doing to also aim for better growth management and better, because Colorado is a landing site for a lot of the exodus from California, just like Texas is right now. There are a lot more people coming here, and there will continue to come here, and they will, through osmosis, find a way to get here, whether we like it or not. And so we have to balance that. They will come regardless. So how are we going to fit them in? And we have to fit them in conjunction with other governments that are also leading the way or figuring it out at the same time. Maybe not leading, but trying to react is sort of the situation we're in. And so I hope that our growth advisory committee will look to or refer to other counties' policies and try to piggyback on it, because there's so much visitor traffic here and not a lot of residents in this county. So it makes sense that we would look to where those visitors are coming from every day and see how they're using growth tools just on the other side of the county line, so that it's in alignment. And then we all have the intended outcome of betterment of the environment, if we're all kind of working together. So I hope that's a part. I hope to see more of that, because I haven't really heard, oh, well, they're doing this in Eagle, so that's not working, let's do this here, or something along those lines. So I'd hope to hear more of that. But yeah, it looks like we're gonna have our work cut out for us come May or June. And that's all I have to say about that. Are there questions from
I'd
Monty
like to make
or
a couple other
Jasmine?
comments here before we move on. I was just a couple of things that just came to mind when you were. So it might be nice for everybody to just look at part of the packet. They had, I think, a very instructive on house caps. went around a bunch of different, resort communities. Okay, what's Jackson Hole doing? What are these other, top resorts doing in terms of what their, what their caps they're putting on and are going to be. So anyway, just a quick comment on that. And then the other thing that is a little unnerving is the infrastructure bill that was adopted by, the feds is basically pushing the state, all the states, and now, it's going through the Colorado legislature. This whole, no more local control over zoning. But I think that is a major issue, a major problem. There's some dire, predictions if that happens, but I think some of them are maybe a little overblown. But there are some states that they're talking about, oh, we're not going to allow single family homes anymore, and we can just build a high rise next to your single family home because we need affordable housing so bad. Which I guess leads me to the third thing I just wanted to mention was there was not a lot of discussion, about affordable housing and the impacts of that. And, I'm just hopeful that the county commissioners will hold the line, which is what we've done in the past, and not allow, huge affordable housing, projects that are out in the rural part of the county, that are away from mass transit and so on. I think the test case that's going to come up soon is going to be Phillips Trailer Park. But in any event, I think that that's still a bit of an unknown in terms of, how are we going to house all of our, all of our workers, and are we going to end up in a community where, it's gotten worse. The nicer we make it, the more expensive it gets. There was an article that maybe you read, maybe you didn't, in the newspaper that Scott Condon did, and interviewed Kinsley and Edwards. And, Joe Edwards is a former law partner of mine, so I know Joe pretty well. But he made a comment, reportedly back when they were talking about, imposing growth controls. And he said, if this all works the way we're thinking it's going to work, we might not even be able to live here. And I think that that's, a lot of that has come true. And, you have younger people that are coming into the community, just can't find any housing. And so, hopefully we're not going to end up where, we got the billionaires and we got the busboys, as, some people say. So anyway, I just wanted to throw those other comments in there. Thanks.
Thanks. Any question? Go ahead, Susan.
Chelsea, I want to say in response to a number of things that have been said in the last 30 minutes or so. The thing that gives me hope about what the Growth Committee is coming up with is that it is solidly based in community values. The community values as stated by the representatives that are serving on this committee right now. At one point in their discussions, I think it was Michael Miracle who started to talk about why the committee couldn't ask for this or that because there won't be any funding for it. And I reminded them what I still believe is true, that it's not up to that committee to decide how things will not work, what will not be funded, what will not be valued by other people. It's up to this committee to be representatives and to head for the climate change goals and the others that the Board of County Commissioners have placed in their laps. I still, believe it or not, have high hopes for this community because I have seen it in the entire time I've lived here, always be willing to take the risk to aim for what really mattered in making this community what it is. And we have done it again and again. One time we did it with air quality when we were about to lose our highway funds. If you think getting wood burning fireplaces and dirty burning wood stoves out of the hands of real estate agents and lodge owners was an easy go. It wasn't. And still we kept on doing it, despite the fact that the national lobbies for those groups appeared here and argued, of course, in their own favor, saying that there were no clean burning fireplaces or wood stoves on the market. And so how could you force people into doing that? Our argument at that time as a community was we will create a market for it. And the only people that had gone before us in that endeavor was Missoula, Montana. Missoula led the way. We followed quickly. It was a hard fight. And within 3 or 4 months, you could buy all sorts of clean burning units of every kind. And then the lodge owners started to come forward saying, well, indeed, it is a problem that we have to buy 4 vacuum cleaners for every 3 rooms every season, because the fireplace ashes get vacuumed up when they shouldn't be. The same thing was so for the smoking ordinance. That was not easy, and people were going to be upset about it. And we persisted and got out ahead of things and did it. So I think we have to keep having hope that the citizens in this community can come together, and they're from the real estate community, they're from the development community, they're from environmental groups, they're from NGOs, they're builders. We recently had one person who was complaining heartily about a development down the valley that she thought was disgusting and vulgar and astounding, and she couldn't understand why it happened. She talked about it for 2 or 3 meetings, and then the man to her right admitted to her he was the one that had built it. He had built it for somebody else, and those 2 people embraced, saying, "We know, we understand one another better now." And people like that particular builder, I have seen come around in ways that I would have never believed, just because they spent the time to sit down and get serious about this stuff and not try to predict what will not work. We won't know it won't work until it doesn't work. So I'm very proud of this group for continuing. It is not a straightforward process. If house size limits are indeed agreed upon, it will only be in the midst of a tightly woven, intricately woven rug or tapestry of other tools. And it will not just be, this is what's going to happen with house size. And in everything this group is doing, they are requiring the data. It's not just that nobody is just blasting in there and saying, well, I just want it this way. It's data-based. So and one other thing I want to acknowledge with Joe. Joe, you are certainly right that when the groups needed answers about things, needed information about things, and I said they got the answers, that was the wrong word to use. They got that topic researched and they got the data back that they needed. They didn't get back the conclusions. There has not been one whisper of a suggestion in this process that the planning office is coming up with the answers. Not at all. So And the answers are still yet to be decided upon. I mean, none of us can speak for that group yet. They are still working on it. And what they come forward with will not be simple. It will be layered and intricate. And it's been a fascinating thing to watch.
Oh, and thanks, Suzanne.
Thanks, Chuck.
I want to give Auntie Jeffrey back. You guys want questions or suggestions? Auntie.
Monty, I think Chelsea called on you. Yes, Chelsea?
Yeah, go ahead, Monty.
Oh, great, thanks. I couldn't quite hear that, but I wanted to speak before all my light goes. I have no light in my house, so it's going to get really dark around me here for a little bit. But anyway, a couple of things. I mean, I think obviously this is a great endeavor from everybody, and like Suzanne says, that everybody can find why a reason won't work, and but find the 5 reasons that might spawns on other ideas, and growth in our valley, in our county, and in the whole entire valley, I think is something that, as Chelsea said, is how we look at this almost holistically and set an example, right, for everybody else. And I think Aspen and Pickens County has always kind of done that. And now that things are changing in our life with, climate issues and population and stuff like that, I think that sometimes it's a bigger picture we have to kind of look at. And I think I brought this up a few times. I know in my interview with P&Z I did, but one of the things that we look at in global warming is the 3 pillars of it, I think, is overpopulation, unsustainability, and pollution. And the number 1 for that is overpopulation. And I remember in one of the reports that came back, and sometimes I hear things wrong, but I think they said that the population of the county or the valley hasn't grown that much. And I'm going, man, I came here in 1976 and I thought it was kind of populated then. And now it's like, overwhelming. And it does, it takes away the quality of life. It takes away the charm and the character, but at the same time, it's part of how our society is moving forward. And one of the things I think that we have to look at, and I think the house sizes and energy consumption, all these things are really important, but also how many people can we fit in here? And I don't know how to stop that, but in some way we have to look at the energy consumption of the amount of people in the entire valley, because just not Pickens County and Aspen, but we have so many, hotels, we have so many dwelling units, and those are big buildings, and a lot of them are really old, right? So they're really heavy energy consumers, and if we don't look at that in redevelopment, what's coming up, but how do we address that other than having a snow gate at 82 and say nobody can come in? I know that's not the answer, but I think that, for me, is how do we set an example for population, or at least bring it up to talk about? Like I say, there's a million reasons why it won't work, but maybe we can start a conversation of the 5 that will, and we'll spun 5 more. So population to me is something globally that is really deep to me. And when I kind of read a thing that for every person that dies, 2 people are born, that's unsustainability. And if the human race is a plague on the planet because we just can't control or kill our host, these are the topics that I think that might not be in our county growth management thing, but if we could bring it up to people and pass the word, maybe, word by word by word, people start paying more attention to it. So anyway, that's kind of my but I think it's a great thing everybody's doing. I think I'm really excited to see what the results are. We've talked about it for the last 12 years I've been on it. So I'm actually really excited to see where it goes. Thank you.
Thanks, Monty. Any other commissioner comments? Jeffrey? Zachary? Go ahead, Jeffrey. Unmute yourself, Jeffrey.
This comment may be a little early, but I'm assuming as you get back to the county commissioners and they sort of self-select the ideas they want to take forward, I'm hoping once it hits planning and zoning again, that it'll be much more data-driven, meaning if the goals are to reduce greenhouse gases by 90% by 2050, then we actually can demonstrate through each of the propositions in front of us how we would actually be achieving that. And I think we had similar sort of charts. I want to say Zach did them the last time, but I think it would remove sort of it would remove some of the subjective bias if it's really just a data-driven exercise. So it's wonderful that we started with sticky notes, but it'd be nice if we finished with Excel. So thank you.
Zachary, go ahead and chime in.
Yeah, I just wanted to say, thanks to everyone who spent all that time on the committee. I've been on one of those, and it's a lot of work. Yeah, I think I just wanted to reiterate what Suzanne said, that Pitkin County has been out in front on so many of these issues, whether it's wood burning stoves or smoking or zoning or employee housing, and all these other counties like Teton County, Summit County, they all look to us. And so if we don't come out first and we don't lay sort of a game plan or a process on how these other counties can attack these issues, I don't see Jackson Hole or Sun Valley doing this on their own. And it's kind of up to us, as it always has been. So that's all I have.
Thank you. I have a question. What does the community outreach look like after the committee starts making their recommendations?
Good question. We haven't developed that exact, format. We've had ideas of, well, as you know, as you might remember from the last meeting, we have introduced a community newsletter. So that is out there for people to be able to tap into very specific stuff about this process. And so we're hoping people will start to acknowledge that a little bit. I don't know where we're going to end up, but my guess is that we're going to hold a few large room types of presentations with the data to date and the what we've been through and what the recommendations are beginning to look like. I envision kind of the same process that maybe the Aspen Institute Transportation Committee did years ago, where they would hold a couple forums and have experts on the various issues available, that kind of thing. But if any of you guys have suggestions on the best way to get more input from the citizens, let us know. It's not going to, unfortunately, it's a skeleton crew that you have here to kind of get that word out. So I kind of think those larger group meetings are the most efficient, but let us know.
Well, thanks for that. I guess I can make suggestions to the group separately, since I can chime in at the committee meetings on Wednesdays. But I would like to go back to one of the other slides for one other comment. So it's the slide that has the 1, 2, 3, 4 steps in the process timeline. If you could show that to us, just because I would like to make a request that, and I don't know if this is possible or above board, maybe Rye could chime in on this, but not this one, but the timeline process, where it goes 1, 2, 3, 4, in numerical order. So there it is. Somewhere between 2, 3, and 4, or in between 3A or 3B, could we have a joint work session with the BOCC so that we can talk directly to them in person, not on Zoom, but in person, to figure out like the read between the lines of the language that they're directing staff to draft and then present to us, and then kind of chew on it with them a little bit before we make formal recommendations? Are we allowed to do that before we vote? They're the elected officials. We're just appointed.
Yeah. We have always planned on having that group meeting with the board and the P&Z before anything formal happens. And so it may be that when the committee makes their recommendations, they make it to the board and the P&Z at the same time. So we'll work on that. But yeah, we've always intended to have that time with the board and the P&Z.
Cool, because that would kill two birds with one stone if it was jointly presented, but just give us an opportunity to talk directly to them. Those are all my comments.
Great. Well, thank you, everybody. If you don't have any more, oh, Suzanne has something.
Go ahead, Suzanne.
You're on mute.
I just wanted to mention, Jeffrey, I think that what you were saying is that you hoped as the process went forward, the results would reflect more data-based set of recommendations. If you think that what is going on right now is not data-based, then I would suggest that you go through the torture of going back and listening and watching the meetings. This is not a case where people get together on Wednesday night and just kind of toss out their opinions. This is data-based, as I see it. Opinions are data-based and they're referred to often. So that might make you feel a little bit better about the way the process has come through thus far, to see the data that has been presented.
You know, if I may, thank you, Suzanne. I think that's a very true statement. But I think I understand Jeffrey's ask, and that is that when we do present recommendations, we are able to present data that shows how those recommendations achieve specific goals that have been laid out. So that is something that we can do, and I think it really will help the process moving forward with any kind of comp plan and land use code amendments. Does that make sense? Yeah. Okay.
Very helpful. Okay, well, that I think covers a pretty healthy update of what the committee has been working on, which is nice. So I'm glad we had the opportunity to discuss it. If everyone agrees, I'm happy to move on to the next kind of agenda item, which is to talk about how this P&Z committee works together in our future meetings, specifically a kind of an encouragement to start meeting again in person at our nice new county building. So I welcome comments from everyone else. Otherwise, I'm going to sort of ask as the chair kindly that I'd like to invite you to join me in person on Main Street at our next meeting on March.
Would you like for me, Chelsea?
And Suzanne?
Would you like for me to be sure I'm testing negative by then?
That kind of goes without saying.
That's a joke.
Yeah, and I hope you get well soon, but yes, bring your healthy self in person, because I think it encourages healthy discussion, and government should be conducted in the open.
I agree with you. I think it loses something when it's flat on a screen.
So I'll commit to being there in person on the 7th, and hopefully I'll see everyone else there too. Suzanne, did you have any comments Suzanne Wolf, as to other working agreement topics that we should discuss?
Sure, I'll chime in on a couple things. Yeah, if we meet in person, we will still, be able to provide a virtual option for those who might be, just not able to get here or can join the meeting. But I think what we're looking for is really, right, I guess, bringing back, a presence in a public meeting. If you're somewhere else, but know you can join in the meeting and really want to, we'll still be able to accommodate that. So anyway, I think that's kind of what I was picturing and, would certainly offer. Other topics were just kind of, touching base with the new chair and vice chair and turning things over. Again, doing this virtually, it has been helpful, obviously, with everybody's kind of got their cameras on, and if we're not doing that as much anymore, that won't be an issue. A plea to, when Bonnie sends out her emails, asking who can attend, for people to respond either positive or negative. If you know you're going to be out of town and not available, give us your calendar, let us know. We can then load that in our calendar system. So we just know that you're not available and we won't pester you then. But it just really helps if we can know ahead of time that we're going to have a quorum. So just an ask for that. Those were kind of my items. And I think then it was just more, right, if anybody else wanted to chime in with thoughts about, obviously it's going to look and feel a little different if everybody's in the room together, and we'll adjust to, to that piece of it. But I guess if there's anything else that people think are helpful kind of moving forward in how you all operate together or anything else.
Can you remind me, what is a quorum?
A quorum is 4 members since we have 7.
1, 2. Yeah, okay. 4 out of 7, got it. Okay, I was just trying to count who's here tonight. And everybody is here on the record, that all of the commission members are attending this meeting tonight.
Do we have a vacancy on the alternate?
Joe, there aren't any alternates anymore on the P&Z.
Okay.
The way it's written now is that we could have up to 9 members. And we've kind of told the board, we feel like it's a lot easier to work with 7. And when they went to 8, and then that really threw things off because we had to have a 5-person quorum. And then we had 9, but one never showed. So again, we've sort of said, we think we're comfortable at 7 for now. And I think this year, is it Chelsea and Jeffrey whose terms are expiring? So they'll be asked, obviously, to, re-up if they'd like. But I think we were planning to just stick with 7 members.
Works for me. I don't have any other comments, but I will do what you asked and send you my schedule so that you can track me on planet Earth at any given time, because I tend to travel and I'm out of town about 30% of the time.
Yeah, if you just, anybody lets us know a meeting where they know you will not attend.
And I think anybody else.
Yeah, that'd be great, because we'll just put it on our agenda that we know you're not around for that meeting.
Out of town on the weekends, and I get back when I'm home by Tuesday night, so I can be here, or there rather, at the county building. Any other comments from anybody else about how things work on the commission? Monty, go ahead and unmute.
If we're meeting in person again, do we get to have snacks or dinner? Just a joke.
You
I
bring
thought
me
I thought you brought the snacks, Monty.
I will see what Pilar can come up with, but no, I think meeting in person is always fun. When we first did Zoom, I was well, I'm not a computer guy, so I was really reluctant to it. But then, one of the things I realized is, everybody's busy schedule to get into town and get out of town. Sometimes, for me at least, I'm living out in Wood Creek, and it's just hard. And but I've learned to enjoy Zoom, but I've always enjoyed being in person. So I'll try to be there on the 7th, and we'll see how it goes.
Thanks, Monty. Okay, well, since we've covered everything on the agenda, then and since Rye, since you're here, I'll ask you, you can add some value right at the very end. Just to reiterate, our next meeting is March 7th. Maybe we'll see you in person. And then Rye, no, we don't need to make a motion to adjourn, correct? I can just call the meeting adjourned in parliamentary procedure.
Yeah, so I will be there next week on the 7th. I know you guys have a location and extent review for the proposed Maroon Creek Trail, which should be a pretty fun application. You don't technically have to have a motion to adjourn, but as a point of procedure, I think most of the boards in Pickett County do.
Really? Okay.
But you're the chair this year, so you're kind of the boss.
What if the motion doesn't pass?
Yeah, exactly. I haven't seen a motion not pass on the P&Z quite some
We're
time.
here. We're not allowed to leave.
Okay, well then, going forward, somebody just actually we'll make it a policy. I'll make a motion to adjourn. Can I make a motion to adjourn as chair? Or do I have
Yes,
to call
you
for
can.
it?
No, you
Okay.
can make a motion to adjourn.
Okay, well then, and then somebody just please do the second if it's easy,
Second.
but be ready to speak up quickly. Because otherwise we're all gonna hang up or we're gonna all leave. So if you have something you really want to say and insert, please do, and we won't hang up. But otherwise, I make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
Okay, great. Well,
You call all in favor.
then I call it and say okay, all those in favor? Great. Okay, well then the meeting is adjourned. Thanks for your patience as we get going with me as chair, and I look forward to seeing you guys in a couple weeks.